I'm here at Carentan and we're going to have a look at the real life location of the third episode of Band of Brothers. Band of Brothers is a 10-part television series co-produced by Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks, which follows the role of Easy Company of the 506 Parachute Infantry Regiment US 101st Airborne Division during World War II. It became an instant success and would set a standard for high quality series, would also result in a second World War II series also produced by Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks, The Pacific, and a third series is planned to be released on Apple TV called Masters of the Air. In the third episode named Carentan, we follow a soldier named Albert Blythe, based of course on a real life person played by Mark Warren. He seems to be really distraught and confused, staring up into the sky. He is found by the rest of his unit and joins in on the assault on Carentan, where they engage in street-to-street fighting with a determined enemy. During a mortar attack, Blythe turns around a corner and sees something we as the viewer don't get to see. He's taken to an aid station and we find out he was struck with a temporary case of conversion disorder, or hysterical blindness. Eventually Easy Company set out to stop a counterattack from German forces set out with a time-traveling Jagdpanther and several other armored vehicles. After heavy fighting, they are eventually reinforced by the 2nd Armored Division. The actual objective for Carentan was to link up Omaha and the Utah beachheads, because with the Germans in control of Carentan this would be impossible. The town was also an important crossroad that could connect the rest of the beaches and would also have an exit to the south. The town was defended by a small group of German Fallschirmjäger under command of Friedrich August von der Heydte, and with most of every field to the north and west flooded, it would force the Allies to attack by road to the south and north of the town. Lieutenant Cole of the 502nd would take the right flank to the north along the Upper Dove River. Another group would take the high ground southwest of the town along the Paris Highway, also known as Hill 30, to block a withdrawal. Lieutenant Cole would later be awarded the Medal of Honor for the attack on the town. The 506 with Winters would take the CD 903 road into town, and a smaller force would take the main road into town, the N171. Some of the remaining Fallschirmjäger had set up an MC-42 into the cafe. In the series you see them actually attack from only the one road and eventually branch off to the right. This was of course done to represent the force that would have taken the main road. Band of Brothers had the same obstacles to overcome as Saving Private Ryan, and most of the inaccuracies in the entirety of the series have to do with downsizing, because sometimes you have to downscale time and certain battles to make it fit into an hour episode or a 2.5 hour movie. And the same laws apply for the characters. Not everybody will be mentioned and some characters will say and do things other historical figures did in real life. And of course these are necessary compromises to tell this in an appropriate amount of time. If this is all done with respect to the history it's trying to tell, I'm okay with that. But let's get back to this third episode. It has one of the biggest errors in the entirety of the series. When Blythe gets shot in the neck, it's stated at the end that he died in 1948. In actuality he died in 1967. So yeah, that's a pretty big error you guys, and it's baffling that this even got past anybody editing or writing this episode, because even I thought the 1948 date was a bit odd. So in the episode he gets shot in the neck, when in reality he got shot in the shoulder. He was taken to a hospital and survived. Later he even served in Korea with the 187th Airborne Regimental Combat Team, and he also never retired from military service. This era probably sneaked into the series because they copied almost everything from the book of Stephen Ambrose. And Ambrose pretty much got this information from several veterans and didn't fact check it and just wrote it down in his book. So 12 minutes into the episode and we see Easy Company getting ready to storm the T-junction on a slope road with 2 ditches to the side. And at the end, Café de Normandie. In reality there never was a Café de Normandie. It's also not really clear if there ever was a cafe in the first place, because some sources say it was called the Café de l'Étoile. The cafe was obviously called Normandie for the audience, to give a clear target for where the enemy was. Of course, for the series they had to scale down the battle to make it much more engaging for the viewer, because a battle from 500 yards away is not really that interesting.
Where'd everybody go? I have no idea! Shit! They got us zeroed! Spread it out! Spread it out!
When Easy Company gets zeroed in by a mortar team, in reality it was Corporal DeWitt Laurie who gets hit first, and Captain Winters that starts yelling, "Mortars, mortars, get down, get down!
Get down! Get down! Get down! Get down! Get down!"
In this sequence, it's Sergeant Lipton that starts directing troops around and eventually gets hit. In reality this was by a mortar round, some sources say an 88mm, but I highly doubt that, because there are no records of any 88s at current time. It was also not by a Pak 36 and a Steel Gnade 41. And all of this would have taken part much farther into town. When Tipper gets hit, it's also somewhere around town center, but this was before Lipton, and at the time Winter starts yelling, get down, mortars." Of course Tipper was inside inspecting a house and he didn't hear Winters. When he came outside he was immediately hit by a mortar shell. Lieutenant Wells was close by and rushed to him and gave him morphine. In the series this is Lipcott. Sergeant Lipton even comes to check on him and says he will be okay. Minutes later he himself gets hit by a mortar round after trying to get some soldiers moving. At this point Blythe is found and carried to an aid station. This would be set up all the way at the railway crossing. A few minutes earlier in the scene you see a bazooka round go into this building. This was actually done much later in the battle after a fanatic German force didn't want to surrender. This is why the frustrated gun-wielding paratrooper executed the wounded German. In the next scene you see Father John Maloney saying prayers for these fallen men. This is one of the only scenes that happen in the right order and with the right person in mind. Eventually, all the way on the other end of town, Lieutenant Winters and Sergeant Randleman reach the town church and the outskirts of town, where they fire on retreating Germans. In the series, Winters runs into a soldier on a horse and gets hit by a stray bullet in the foot, and the rest of this scene pretty much plays out just as it happened in real life. Of course, this entire sequence has been jumbled about to keep the pace moving. It doesn't really affect the history told here. I can see why they changed from Lipton to Winters and that he was shown yelling and directing people. He was the one that would get hit, and this would make the viewer more sentimental towards him in that moment. Of course, in reality this took place on a much larger scale and not just in this small section. And just like the first 20 minutes of Saving Private Ryan, they did an amazing job in downscaling the event in a short section, and the entire series gives a great narrative of all these accounts. The scene was filmed at the Hatfield Studios in the UK, and it's pretty much made to look like it had the same layout it was based on. Of course the buildings don't really match the buildings in real life, but some have the characteristics of some of the original buildings, especially the town center archway. The effects team did an amazing job in letting a small studio lot feel much bigger than it actually was. But I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, hit that like button. And if you want to support the channel, think about buying me a coffee. I hope you have an awesome weekend and see you in the next one.